life raft is 8 feet by 8 feet. Bright yellow and decorated with crusty maroon patches of dried blood. Adrift somewhere in the middle of the Devil's Triangle. There are no instruments on board, no tools or means of communication. There is no food, no potable water, nor is there any shelter to give a moment's respite from the throbbing white heat of the sun. There are only 2 people on the life raft. 2 survivors of the horrific fate of the research vessel, the Flayed Lady. Between them lays the body of a dead man, splayed out like a dividing line. They both study the horizon, searching futilely for a wisp of land or the shadow of a boat. There is nothing but the endless sea and the unforgiving sun. But this is not a story about them. This is a story about you and how far you would go to survive when you're dead in the water. Drinking whiskey in the kitchen and telling scary stories around the fire. Music, monsters, and mayhem. Killers, cannibals, and cults. Fearful fiction and furious fact. Tall tales and terrifying truths. This is a scary home companion. The worst part of this is the feeling of the life raft beneath you. You sink into it like a waterbed that you can't climb out of. You feel the ocean on the other side of a thin piece of plastic. Nothing solid to stand on, to get a grip on, to even hold on to your own equilibrium. No, that's not it. The worst part is the slow roasting of your meat as your skin goes from pink to red to crispy. Every movement feels like you're being whipped with nettles. No, the worst part has to be the headache. An atomic migraine drawing power from the toxic brightness of the sunlight. It feels like needles of ice are sliding into the corners of your eyeballs and then turning to napalm behind the sockets. It's a crippling pain, making it impossible to think of anything else. Only when there's a brief, minor lapse in the pain do you realize that the actual worst part of this situation, worse than anything else, is the knowledge that you will die out here. You know the area. Hell, it's your life. Although you don't know your exact coordinates, you can ballpark it, and you know that there isn't a shipping lane or a popular fishing spot for miles and miles and miles. Even if you had the strength to paddle, to push yourself in one direction, which you don't, there was nowhere for you to go. With all of your training, your experience, your survival skills, you know that at this point in time, in this situation, all you can do is to stay perfectly still, save your strength, and pray. Praying. It something you haven't done in years. Not since the last time your parents guilted you into praying. But now, it all comes spilling out of you from a swollen tongue through cracking lips. And you remember every word, in Hebrew as you were taught. And you wonder if that would make your parents happy. Would it please them to know that you died in prayer? You look at Joe's body. Joe Marbury, master of the ocean tides, he used to call himself. Joe spent his whole professional life in this part of the Atlantic. If anyone could have helped you find the right direction, it would have been Joe. Now he was naked, face down so he wouldn't be looking up at you. You'd stripped him to use his clothes for extra protection against the sun, but it proved to be of little help. Bobby Gigg had taken the ripped and torn t-shirt to wrap around his head, and you took Joe's cut-off denim shorts. Dipping them in the seawater and then covering your head and face was the closest thing to relief you had on this raft. When you were first taking those shorts, you found a folding knife in the pocket. You didn't pause to dissect your motives, you just slipped it into your own pocket without letting Bobby see it. Bobby was unstable. And you've known him for almost as long as you knew Joe. Bobby was a steady hand on any crew, and an artisan with making and distributing his own party favors. In another lifetime, in another world, that was a big plus in Bobby's favor, but here, now, it was anything but. Bobby had been leaning on his drugs far too much for the last few weeks. As difficult as these circumstances are to begin with, on top of everything else, Bobby is detoxing, going through withdrawal pains with no way of fighting them off. Which is why you felt justified in keeping that knife hidden from him. Like Hunter Thompson wrote, you can turn your back on a man, but never turn your back on a drug. The migraine hammers start to pound on the inside of your face, trying to smash their way free. You don't have the strength to fight it. You fall into the pain, feeling yourself lifting up off the raft, floating, spinning. You open your eyes to make the spins go away, to reorient yourself. You can taste fresh bile in your mouth. And the acid taste is actually a bit of a relief. For a few moments, you can't taste the seawater. You find that the sun is freshly set. Its pulpy purple tendrils are clinging to the horizon. Bobby is awake. He seems calm, but his hands won't stop shaking. And it isn't from being cold. The temp has dropped, thankfully, but it's still a balmy, windless 80 degrees. Bobby is shaking because he's staring at Joe. You can see the mad thoughts behind his eyes, wrestling with reason, fighting with sanity. It's only been 2 days, you tell him. You can hold out. It's been 3 days, he croaks, and I can't. Neither one of us can. You tell him that he can't do it. You tell him you won't let him do it. Well, why else did we keep him? Bobby asks you. He's fucking furious. You knew that this might have to happen, and it does. It has to happen. You shake your head. You kept Joe on the boat because you know him. You know his wife. You know his 2 daughters. You kept Joe because the decent thing to do was to bring him back home for proper burial. Bobby shakes his head. He doesn't believe you. He thinks you brought Joe as a form of supplies. If you had more strength, you would have had more restraint. You wouldn't have become so angry. But the fact that Bobby thinks you are capable of eating your friend infuriates you. So you grab Joe by his cold, clammy shoulder and you shove him over the edge and into the water. If he can't make it back home to rest, the least you can do is spare him further indignity in death. Bobby doesn't say anything else, but the way he stares at you makes you very happy that you kept the knife. As the sun starts to rise, your entire body clenches in anticipation. The first rays of the sun touch you, and you expect to start sizzling and smoking like a movie vampire, and that is about how it feels. Bobby is muttering to himself. He's clutching his midsection, racked with dry heaves so bad he started throwing up blood 2 hours ago. You can see the knots in his muscles, and his whole body seems to be folding in on itself. You fondle the knife in your pocket. It comforts you. Finally, Bobby was deeply unconscious enough to relax. He slept, and you allowed yourself to close your eyes and slip away. But there was no respite, not even inside your own mind. You dream of being inside a bronze bull, a magnificent oven of the finest hammered metals. A large bonfire has been lit beneath this bull, and slowly the temperature rises, cooking you, making you feel every insufferable moment. When you snap awake, you find that the nightmare was no worse than your reality. You are slowly dying. That's when you finally hit that level of desperation that breaks you. You start to silently weep, too dehydrated to generate tears, but letting yourself be overcome with sobs. As Bobby comforts you. The sun is hanging low now. How long were you out? It's getting harder and harder to tell consciousness from sleep. Bobby is sitting close to you, right next to you, running his fingers through your matted, gnarly hair. He looks like hell. Something about his eyes calms you. This is the Bobby you remember. He's back. Hey, it's okay, he soothes you. I know you didn't like this idea yesterday, but... He licked his lips and looked out to sea. You follow his gaze and see a white lump floating in the water nearby. It is Joe's body. It is drifting alongside you still, maybe 100 yards away or so, easily within paddling distance. Bobby says softly, I don't want to do it either. I loved Joe. His kid? What's her name? She drew me a picture of a boat with me as the captain, and I always took it with me, always. Even on this trip, I had it with me. I don't want to do this. But I want to live. If we can stay alive long enough, they're going to find us. You had abandoned hope entirely. But the hope in Bobby's voice awakens something in you. Bobby truly believes that you will be found. Is that enough? No. But it was something, a straw at which to grasp. I can't, you tell him. Then you take out the folding knife and you hand it to him. But I won't stop you. Do what you have to do. Bobby starts to paddle. It's weak, but slowly you move ever closer to Joe's body. You don't have the strength or the nerve to help him in his quest. You just hope that you pass out before he reaches the corpse and does what he has to do. You look down into the water, see a dark shape swim underneath. You blink, thinking it was a shadow or a trick of the light, but then you see another, and your heart skips a beat. You hadn't seen marine life, any marine life, for the last few days. The dark horrors of the Devil's Triangle and that hungry maw you barely escaped from, they seem to keep all the sea creatures at bay. That you are now seeing fish again means you are finally far enough away from that infernal place. You are free of its influence. You are back in the real world. Could Bobby have been right? Could there actually be an end to this waking nightmare? Joe's body is only 20 feet away. You see that Bobby has started to salivate and pant, and it makes you queasy. 10 feet away, and that's when the body moves. Your old friend Joe Marbury jerks around and rolls over in the water. You can see his face staring at you as he twitches and rises up out of the water, clenched firmly in the jaws of a tiger shark. The beast slaps the surface of the water, splashing you. A second shark appears, ripping Joe's head from the end of his neck as another smaller shark attacks one of his swinging legs. In a span of 20 seconds, Joe Marbury is entirely torn to pieces and partially devoured. Bobby had stopped paddling. You both stay impossibly still, not wanting to draw their voracious attention. Although a part of you knows it's already too late. and there's nothing you can do. Sharks can smell blood in the water from up to half a kilometer away. You're only feet away, and you're sitting in a life raft that has been soaked in Joe's blood. Their hunger aroused but not bedded back down, the sharks start to poke and prod at the bottom of the life raft. You can feel a snout 8 inches across pushing up from below. Just that thin piece of yellow plastic between you and a beast that must be 12 feet long. Bobby is rigid with fear. The knife is in his hand. Cut one of them, you tell him. That's not going to kill a shark, he says. Make it bleed, you say. Make it bleed and maybe the others will turn on it. In the midst of a feeding frenzy, sharks would often attack one another. Perhaps a little chaos will buy you enough time to drift away. Bobby shakes his head and tosses you the knife. For a second, just for a second, you realize that it would be easier to cut Bobby and toss him over the side than to attack a shark. You can't do that. You look into the water, trembling, and wait to see a snout within striking distance. Can you even do it? Can you reach into that water? Can you hold the knife? Do you have the strength? But then, you see something. You see someone. A tiny fishing boat with a single man on board. And he's heading right towards you. You wipe your face, you try to blink the hallucination away, but he keeps getting closer. You point, and the way Bobby's face lights up, you know that he can see him too. The man is real. Somebody has found you. As the boat approaches, the man cuts the engine. And you feel the sharks pulling away. The water ripples as they flee in all directions. And a very bad feeling takes hold in your chest. An icy cold feeling. What on earth could possibly make hungry, feeding sharks abandon prey? And why was this man laughing? Now that it is too late, you realize that he is not here to help you at all. He's a Hershon man, tall and sea-worn. His boat is rickety and lashed together in places. With only a single outboard engine, it doesn't look like it could be possible to make it this far out. You see that the man is wearing a skipper's cap. It's deeply yellowed around the hat band. You've seen this hat before. Your friend Swede used to wear it before he went to the bottom of the ocean. Now here it was, on this man's head, sitting uneasily on a pile of knotty dreadlocks. "Help us," you croak. "Take us with you," Bobby pleads. The man laughs again. "You would not want to go where I am headed. It's back the way you came." Bobby is too far gone. Either he isn't listening or he doesn't care. As soon as that boat gets close enough, he reaches for it. He grabs at the short wooden rail along the bow. You're still holding the knife. You want to tell Bobby not to go, but the words won't come. "Thank you, thank you, thank you," he murmurs as he pulls himself up onto the man's boat. Then he sees something inside that boat, something you can't see from your vantage point. He gasps and tries to pull away. You didn't see the man pick up the boat oar, but suddenly he's holding it. Suddenly it's coming down across the back of Bobby's head. He goes limp, and the man drags him into the boat. When he tosses Bobby to the floor, there are muffled thumps, moans, cries, thin, reedy voices, broken and scared. Children that have been bound and gagged. You raise up a few inches, just enough to see burlap sacks, stuffed full and tied shut, lining the bottom of the man's boat. And he's staring at you. He's still smiling. You raise the knife up as far as you can, brandishing it, swinging it back and forth, cutting the air. "Come on, motherfucker, try and take me." You wish you could say that to him, but you can't. The man sets down his oar and picks up a bottle of water. It must have come straight from a cooler because the glass surface is beaded with little droplets. He slowly unscrews the cap, takes a nice long drink. You're trying to salivate, but you can't. Your tongue lolls from your mouth. You see him drain half the bottle in one long chug, and you realize you have never wanted anything more in your entire life. Then he turns the bottle upside down and dumps the rest of it, all that cold, refreshing, clean water. He dumps it into the sea, and he laughs again. He picks up another bottle of water. He holds it out to you, and then pulls it back. "A trade?" he asks. He reaches down and pats Bobby on his back. Bobby groans. "You could climb aboard and rescue your friend here. You can pull him back with you. I'll tell you what, I won't even stop you. Or you could trade me." "Trade you?" You know what he means, but you're trying not to face it. And he clarifies. "Yes, an even trade. This water for your friend." I can't. I can't. He slowly unscrews the cap from the second bottle. You have to say it, he tells you. You have to trade me. You can't look him in the eye. You can't look at his boat. You can't think about what horrid cargo is already on board or where it is headed. Close your eyes and you say it. I agree to the trade. There's a soft thump as the sealed bottle of water lands next to you on the raft. The man's engine buzzes to life, and he laughs heartily as he steers deeper into the heart of the Devil's Triangle. You don't watch him go. You are transfixed by this bottle. It's an old glass bottle. When you pick it up, it's so cool to the touch that you have to gently rub it against your face and along the back of your neck. You try and control yourself. You have to make this sacrifice worth it. Just a sip. Just one sip to start, and not even to swallow. A bottle cap full of water barely wets your lips, and it doesn't even touch your tongue. Your mouth soaks it up too quickly. One more bottle cap, this time directly on the tongue. Oh, it feels so fucking good. Nothing has ever felt this good before. Nothing. You know that the guilt will come. But now, right now, this water is pure euphoria. One cap at a time, you slowly drink half the bottle over the course of the afternoon. When the sun sets, when the air cools just a bit, you aren't even tempted to drink the rest. This water buys you 2 more days, maybe 3. And you know that you have to fucking use them. And you do. That little bit of extra time, extra strength, that little bit of extra clarity of thought, it was enough. Bobby and his desperate hope was justified. Against all odds, you catch sight of a ship the next evening. You quickly chug the remainder of your water before you smash the bottle and use one of the curved shards to signal an SOS. It works. You can't even believe it, but it works. When the ship slows down and a dinghy starts to move towards you, you think it's a hallucination. But it isn't. It's real. They found you. And they take you back to shore. Your boss, Miss Ambrose, pays for all your medical care. She even comes to see you in your private hospital bed. After clearing the room, Miss Ambrose demands to hear the full story of what you'd gone through. You're too weak to lie. So she helps you and tells you what parts of your story to tell and which to keep to yourself. You listen. You obey. Something in the timbre of her voice demands obedience. After you speak to the authorities, telling them the truncated version of what happened, you get out of the hospital. And you find that your bank account is full to an unexpected degree. Obeying Miss Ambrose pays well. So you keep your mouth shut, and you stick to the official story. It takes a while before you can stop telling the official story. The Coast Guard, the local police, the DRO, several different professional and scientific organizations, everyone needed to hear the whole story, and they needed to hear it from you. After a few months, they stop asking. After a few more months, you even start to get a few new job offers. But you still aren't ready to go back out on the water. You may never be. Once you were no longer fighting for your life, then the weight of what you had done, of what you had traded, fell full brunt across your soul. Therapy couldn't help because you could never bring yourself to tell the full story, not even to a therapist. You remained committed to the lie. You could never risk telling another soul. Waking up one morning, you go to the front window to take in the sunrise. On the sidewalk in front of your house, you see a man standing at the fence, staring at you through the window. It's Bobby. Somehow, it's Bobby. He opens your front gate and walks up to the door. You see a folding knife in his hand. Thank you for listening to another episode of Scary Home Companion. Find the show on social media, Facebook, Instagram, and sometimes even Twitter. You can email us directly at scaryhomecompanion@gmail.com, or, best of all, contact us through the Patreon page. Lots of extra stuff and bonus material on the Patreon, including a handful of exclusive episodes, and there's one more on deck coming in the next few days. It's a sordid little tale about a cult of hijackers that take over a cruise ship and steer it into the heart of the Devil's Triangle. Exclusively on Patreon. If you would like to hear the lead up to the story that you just listened to, find out how you got out into the middle of the ocean in the first place, then you should listen to The Final Voyage of the Flayed Lady. If you'd like another dose of this intense storytelling style, then I recommend the episode called Guts. Dead in the Water was edited and produced by Jeff Davidson and features a guest appearance by Scott Taft of the Budget Arcade podcast. Music this time was by Soularflair with Static Sea, Cryptic Scenery with Adrift, Jed Hershon with Black Ocean, and Daniel Birch with 3 chilling tunes, Lost at Sea, Boat to the Island, and Run. it might be somebody. As always, Chelsea Oxendine provided the theme music. But wait, we're not done quite yet.
It was a radical experiment conducted on the edge of the desert. A renegade academic and his research subjects would become psychonauts, explorers of the nightmare world. They sought to use lucid dreaming, hypnotherapy, and drugs to map the mysteries of dreams. But something has followed them back. Join a scary home companion for the chilling story of the Death Valley Desert Sessions.